Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing our Great Xing run in patch 1.5, the live version of 1.5. You can see the blue lines, they look so pretty. And last episode doesn't matter. But for the sake of continuity, what happened last episode is we researched the corporatism tech. This unlocked corporatism, a new ideology on our devout, which very importantly helps them support public health insurance, which we passed, which is going to be extremely strong in 1.5. And the reason why what happened last episode doesn't matter is because this episode we're going to fulfill our destiny and become the rice warlord. That's right, rice is nice and half the world's supply should suffice. We are going to be building a ton of rice, and we are going to be building up because rice is the most OP building in all of Victoria 3 right now. On a per construction basis, it adds just an enormous amount of value. And if we come in, these prices ain't depressed, baby. The reason it's OP is because the difference between patch 1.4 and 1.5, they doubled the output of the rice farm, they doubled the input, and they doubled the labor. And I know what you might be thinking. You're like, hey, that's a reasonable thing to do. Everything's doubled. You know what they didn't double? They didn't double the construction cost. So it's 2 buildings for the price of 1. And if you build a ton of it, yeah, the prices get depressed and it's not that profitable anymore. But we are going to become the rice warlord. We're going to build a ton of it, and we're going to make it not profitable because it's like 2 buildings for the price of 1. On a per construction basis, it's insane. And these prices ain't cheap. We don't see any of those gray shekels or whatever they're called, and so we are just going to be absolutely cranking up on rice this episode. Last episode we researched improved fertilizer, but I wanted the whole shebang to be all contained within one episode where we really turn up on rice. This is going to do several things. So first of all, I just want you to note standard living is currently 11.1. Over the course of this episode, between the healthcare and the rice, where's the healthcare? Okay, that between the health system and the rice, we should absolutely crank up. We're going to get 1.5 SOL from the healthcare if we can manage to get up 4 levels this episode. And also, the most important element for increasing standard of living, at least the average, is going to be the lowest rung pop. Look at 20% of their consumption. It's on grain. Wow, actually, look at this. It's also uniform. Almost everything's the same price. Wowza. But we are going to be absolutely blasting into the stratosphere this grain. So expect this to rise. Expect our pop growth rate, which is 3.65 million, 100,000 for every day of the year or whatever. This is our current growth rate. Expect this to absolutely crank up on the back of both the healthcare and the increased standard of living. And finally, we have 27.4 radicals and 41.5 million loyalists. Over the course of this episode, this should blast up. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Generalist, we can't afford any more rice farms. You're saying become the rice warlord. We're about to run out of money. No. If you look at the credit line, the credit is partially informed by, here, let's hover the tooltip. The national credit is the amount of the money the Treasury can borrow from its economy equal to the sum of all domestic cash reserves plus a base value determined by GDP. If the principal exceeds, etc., we don't worry about that because we never run out of money. It doesn't happen ever. Except it does. Okay, that means the credit line, if we come back and we read the tooltip because we have eyes, if the sum of all cash reserves of the building, the amount of cash reserves we're getting per construction out of rice farms is insane. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to build the credit line away from ourselves, despite the fact that I think we're going to maybe even try and double construction. I mean, certainly it's what a rice warlord would do. A rice warlord would not be satisfied with 4K construction. So if we double the construction and try and use rice farms to push the credit line away from us, this might work. It also might not work. We'll see. But notably, if we collapse the price of rice so that these buildings are not profitable and the cash reserves go down, then the entire economy collapses, right? Because if our credit line is in the cash reserves and we suddenly collapse the cash reserves of every building or like an enormous amount of buildings, vis-a-vis the rice farms, then we're going to have a bad time. So what we are going to do is we are going to come into, the auto queue, and we are going to come down, we're going to scroll, and then we're going to forget that it's at the top of the queue, because it's rice, and then we are going to put auto-expand. We're going to start auto-expanding on rice. Now, very importantly, we are going to keep using harvesting tools, which means that every rice farm will hire 9K workers. However, it's important to remember that when we build over a subsistence farm, each subsistence farm hires 10K workers, so specifically in areas where we have max sub-farms already employed, so I think Fujian is going to be one of these places. we are not going to expand the rice as aggressively as possible. We're going to be a little bit conservative, knowing that each time we build one, we're going to create 1,000 unemployment, because it will fire 10K workers from the rice farms, and then it will only hire 9K workers here, per level, except a little bit more because we have... wait, why is it a little bit more? It's just a little bit more, though. Okay, fair enough. Is this just not giving us... No, it's giving us the number. It's just not 10K? Okay, that's a concern for later. But in places like Jiangxi, where we have excess, unused arable land, we're going to crank up and just full 51 out of nowhere on these. And so we are just going to blast, like building to 51 for economies of scale, and the amount of pops in Jiangxi should be able to support this. Our rice is mainly in southern China, and this is where we're going to be building up in particular, and we will also try and handle the unemployment specifically in the southern states more so than the other ones, because this way we will be able to build out the sub-farms without losing unemployment. Okay, off we go. Also, you might notice we reorganized a ton of the military here off to the right, and we are recruiting a ton of military in the queue, mainly mobile artillery. We are going to start to lean into, but not kind of fully realize, the bonus that we get from the minus military goods cost being a free money modifier. Now, we don't really want to exploit that too much, because even though it's a free money modifier that injects, money into the economy, free stimulus, because we are paying this much, but the amount of goods that are getting bought is, considerably higher. This is only 85% of the amount of goods that are getting bought, and so it's spinning money into the economy. Despite this, construction is going to be more useful to us, and so we're not going to fully turn up just yet, but we are adding, several hundred, barracks in the queue, I think, if I recall correctly. It's not going to show us there. In development, will it show us? Yeah, so we're going from 540 barracks to, 720 barracks, and this will represent a pretty big increase. We also are going to expand the naval bases in much kind of the same sort of philosophy. Also, our naval bases are not really upgrading these guys. I'm not sure what's going on there. We're going to let it try, but we might have to delete and rebuild all these guys. But in any case, we're also cranking up this in anticipation of next episode, trying to become a military-industrial complex, because what does the Rice Warlord need? He needs a military. Oh, also our starting point was roughly 220 rice farms. We currently have 80 more in the queue, and, sky's the limit here. So we got up to 500 construction, knowing that reinforced concrete was on the way, and I know what you're thinking. Generalist, this is too big a deficit. No. The credit line, I trust in the rice because it is nice. I trust in the credit line to increase faster than that. That is what we're up against, and I'm pretty sure we can handle it because we are the Rice Warlord and nothing can stop us. So we have begun the swap. You can see that the grain price is going down as our first, kind of wave of rice farms is finishing. But as we add more of these, we actually want the grain price to be higher as it becomes a higher proportion of our economy. Or not really higher, because we're actually trying to reduce it to increase SOL, but we're going to build so many rice farms, it's just going to collapse. And so what we've done is we've swapped our strategy from being, protect domestic supply, we've swapped to encourage exports, and now we are going to, be the breadbasket of the world, as it were, which is going to allow us to better employ up these buildings, and also export, because we have quite a bit coming down the pipeline. We are building a lot of rice, and so, yeah. Now, it looks like the Netherlands wants some help here with the USA. Shout out to the USA getting their pie thumbed. They're trying to conquer Guinea, Holland, and Gelre. And you know what? I think they're going to become our subject now, which is going to be big nice for us. Become our protectorate. Please and thank you. See you later. So with our tech, we actually swapped to Zeppelins. What we're going to look to do is complete Zeppelins and Malaria process at the exact same time. Every time one of these tier 3 techs nat spreads to us, it significantly decreases the amount of progress we need to do to finish malaria prevention. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep juggling these back and forth so that they finish at the exact same time on the basis of them getting cheaper, because the tier 3 techs are getting nat spread. We really want all of our active research to be ahead of time, and so we're kind of picking out the best tier 4 techs, and we can see that, we are still spreading everything, and our tech spread is giving us an average of 200, innovation, whereas our active spread only 132. We are tech spreading electrical generations, which is going to be really nice for us, because generally it's better when you have pop problems because of the way it recruits up, although I think they fixed that actually in this patch, and so this is going to be quite nice for us. We might even add more universities, but I just don't want to quite overbuild, and I think we're maybe a little bit close to overbuilding. We also have to make sure we keep this queue running. Oh, baby. The Rice Warlord will bring electricity to his people. The Rice Warlord shall further bring education to his people after passing regulatory bodies. Just a little update in terms of how things are going. Obviously, we're experiencing a little bit of, tense moments, getting pretty close. We defaulted we were in debt for about... We're well in debt. What I mean to say is we had to pause construction for 1 to 2 weeks. Still not adding any more. We are up like 50% on the episode, and it's barely been any time, so we can crank at this for a while before we go the rest of the 50%, before we go all the way. We are gaining 6 million pops a year, up from 3.6 at the episode start. We were at 11.1, SOL at the start, and now we're up to 12.8, and our rice farms, my farm, is up from 220 at game start to 500. So we have been cranking up really strongly. In particular, the prices are not all that depressed because we've been exporting, but they're going to start to get a little bit depressed, and so we're going to have to pull back. We also are implementing electricity, which is really the reason why we kind of slowed down. If you take a look at our GDP, this crank up here, this is when we were focusing on rice, and this dip is when we had to pause construction, and also we dipped or leveled out as a result of building the electricity, because we went a long time without finishing building, without getting a little bit of an expanse to our credit line. And also, they're really not the best buildings, but we really have to wait a while for them to play up and also get a cash reserve going. But we have electricity now in a bunch of these places, and critically speaking, so it's still not like fully implemented, but critically speaking, the electric sawmills PM is quite strong, and so getting that going when we had like relatively expensive lumber and we are fully expanded out on all of our lumber here is going to be pretty nice, as well as getting the electrical streetlights, because and this should really help the auto queue kind of go. The electrical streetlights are going to give extra infrastructure instead of giving how much infrastructure per level is this? Well, 143, instead of giving 143, it's doubled. I can't remember if it's 1 infrastructure to 2 or something like this, but it's, well, actually, we can do math, right? Except never do math when you're recording a video. So it's 2 infrastructure per level. This means we have a ton of places now with a bunch of available infrastructure, and this is one of the main throttles that prevents your auto queue from going. They won't dive you into negative infrastructure, and so by us having extra infrastructure, it should help our auto queue to go, which will allow this investment pool to start draining a little bit better, on the back of this electricity finishing. And we got more coming on up, so we're going to do the same in other areas. And so even though we had to pause construction, now we should enter kind of a zone after this like brief stint where our credit line is going to be increasing at a pretty dramatic rate, or not a credit line. We are barely going to be accumulating credit. Minus 200k is not a lot, or relative to the size of our economy. So we're going to be able to crank up through this on the back of kind of like what was a speed bump initially implementing electricity. Unemployment is also down overall on the episode. I forget exactly what we started with. I think it was around 4 million. We're down to 3 million. We're overexpanding infrastructure, in particular in the areas where we have a lot of unemployment, with the hopes that the auto queue, puts in more buildings there that are going to be profitable, rather than somewhere else. Again, trying to make it so that our investment pool will drain a little bit more aggressively. We have a huge accumulation. You can see this is the drain that we got off the back of, getting the electricity, but now it's starting to level out. But as more electricity finishes and we swap more over, we should be able to get that auto queue draining a little bit more, in a way that is relatively efficient and not, railroads kind of suck. And so we would rather get it through the lighting. This is preferable. And this also kind of, allows us to have, better PMs kind of coming on in. You can see all the places. We even got a NAT expand on in Eastern Hubei on this. Of course, it's losing money and they decided to expand, which is okay, fair enough. You got us there. All right, we unlock investment banks through natural spread, which also finishes up Malaria, which is also going to leave us, finishing Zeppelins all at the same time. So this is all, of course, a big nice. This unlocks another company for us. And then we are going to be, looking for a tier 4 tech that we rather like. You know, we expect pump jacks to start nat spreading to us sometime soon, and so we're actually not going to research pump jacks, even though I think that this is the technology we would actually want most, which is a little bit of an unusual thing. We could go plastics. Plastics is a reasonable one. We could prepare to go militarily oriented, but we have so much electricity, and we're, you know, having a decent time implementing that maybe we want to go electrical capacitors and unlock some pretty good PMs, and you know, this kind of would allow us to go electrical railways, and then maybe we go compression ignition, something like this. So we're just going to slot in on electrical capacitors at least right now, and then take a look at military tech, where, you know, I think that, so once this finishes spreading, actually, let's just go trench works. Let's get our military on a little bit, and hopefully this will be nice. And then also we can, of course, get the little bit of a rush for Africa. I said the rush for Africa. We're finishing. Didn't we finish Malaria? There we go. Bring out the map at straight edges. That's the one we wanted. Now, why can't we establish colonies here? We might have to do a little bit of a save load, but let's take a look at the companies. We have Ching Steel, which is giving us 5% state construction efficiency everywhere, and then we have, you know, pretty heavily in on the minerals. This is starting to fall off because we are starting to fully exhaust these areas, so we're not really benefiting too much from the construction at the moment. And there's another company we actually want to slot in pretty badly, but we currently cannot use it, so let's establish the Ching Forestry one for now, because we've been running a rubber shortage for forever anyways, and then come into Lima, because in order to use the Lima company that we want to set up, we are going to need a level 5, that is a level 5, and it's also not there anymore. It used to be there. We're going to need a level 5 power plant there, so we're going to put in on there. So we have a bit of an unwinnable war here. So we're probably going to end up capitulating once we finish this Selangor war. And the reason this war is unwinnable is because it is against this Inner Mauritania guy. It is against Aulada, except for this is the only territory we have to take, and as you notice, it's impassable, so we can't actually assign anyone there. I believe maybe if we had this HQ we could assign someone. I really don't know what's going on here, but we cannot assign to that front anyone, and so we're almost certainly going to have to capitulate and give up all of Inner Mauritania, which is a bit annoying because we had to capitulate on this same kind of war before, and now France is going to get, you know, what is rightfully Qing territory. But we are kind of pulling up on 1 billion GDP, and for the company here in Lima, it is actually required that we have this guy incorporated, so we'll be getting it in about 5 months. Okay, so big mistake on our part. I forgot that you actually have to be researching a tech, or it has to nat spread to you for you to finish it, and so while we had more than enough tech to finish Zeppelins, we didn't finish it, and as soon as we finished it, you know, our balance hopped up quite nicely, or, you know, it was like minus 300,000, and then now it's just minus 1 point whatever K. We still are running like a deficit, or I'm sorry, we still have all our construction queue going, and now we're making money. You know, it's very, very nice to get better prices on everything. I think this is the result of stuff employing up, this sort of stuff. We haven't seen a hitch in GDP as the result of this, but now we have 95% MAPI, where we have our special rivers, which is, you know, like half our states. We can kind of take a look here. Look with your special eyes at our special rivers. These are the rice warlord rivers. At least the Yangtze is, because there's rice all along the Yangtze River. And this is giving us 5% market access price impact, and so we will be able to get 100%. But also in the north, we do have the Yellow River, which is notably where we have not rice. We have just, you know, or, well, we have rice there. Shout out to rice. But we have wheat farms in a lot of these places, and so we'll end up expanding these wheat farms. We'll probably push this, you know, we're going to start pushing up a ton of these as well, and by these I mean stuff that is going to be agricultural but not farming, and I forget the name of it right now because brain, but plantations, that's the one, because nat spreading to us is pump jacks. Automatic irrigation is an absolutely insane PM, and this is going to make all of these profitable, and we've kind of passed the threshold where, you know, you stop really caring about everything being capitalist oriented, at least in terms of our GDP, so we're going to do that. And, you know, lacking us actually rolling a theocrat, you know, kind of in a timely fashion, we're probably going to look to be better read and then have our opponents dead and go communist at some point in the near future, Council Republic, this type of thing. The trade unions would love it, everyone else hates it, so we'll have to figure out some way in terms of agitators to maybe get that in. We can't really invite a lot of people because of reasons, but, well, this guy is actually not terrible, but, you know, Anyways, this is kind of what's going on now, but big ups to the Big Mappy, because that is going to really positively affect, and of course, the thing we're going to put in, construction, or construction for the Rice Warlord, and Rice too. Lima is now incorporated, so we can slot in our new company. Now, I'm not even 100% sure it's better, because we have rubber problems anyways, and so the throughput on rubber, in addition to, plus 20 infrastructure in almost every one of our provinces, plus we have like 600 logging camps, and we're already tapped out of logging camps, so we can't build more. I'm not entirely sure that this company is going to be better, but I do want to play around with 5% state construction efficiency. Unfortunately, we do not have the prosperity bonus. It will be a little bit easier to unlock, once this throughput kicks in, the company throughput on this building, but I'm not entirely sure we're going to be able to achieve that sort of thing until we get, you can see it's already kicked up the productivity because it calculated the 20%, and so I think we might just stop going on trench works. We really want to get this bonus. This is why we really slotted in the company, and instead we'll switch to electrical capacitors in order to try and get this done. But we really want to get to the prosperity bonus of, we don't care about the infrastructure per 100k population at all, really, because even though we have a lot of population, this doesn't increase the cap, it just increases infra per population, so this is not going to do anything because we're at cap in most places. Cap, is achieved at 2 million pops. We have, a bunch of places with, 20 million pops. But we really want this 5% state construction efficiency here, and boosting throughput on the power plants is not terrible, because most of these power plants will actually be at relatively low levels. It's going to be really hard for us to get, economies of scale on these power plants because, they're going to be such low level because obviously, or if you take a look, they have difficulty hiring. Hopefully this one doesn't auto-expand into the abyss. I think they kind of fixed that problem that was present in the beta. But if we take a look here, the less throughput you have, the more valuable it is. If you get 20% throughput when you already have 100% throughput, that only represents a 10% increase in your inputs and outputs. But if you have 0 throughput and you get 20%, it's 20% increase. And because, again, most of these won't be high level and it's a local good, we're anticipating that this company is actually going to be reasonably decent. It's probably going to be better than steel, even though we have less power plants than we have steel, just because on a lot of our steel, or a big chunk of our steel, we already have, an enormous throughput. Like, for example, here we have 80% throughput, and instead we are benefiting a little bit more proportionally from the additional 20% throughput here in Jiangxi off of this. We're still getting 20%, or we're still getting economies of scale, and it doesn't apply anymore. It used to be the case that actually, we're not even using encourage industries. We're probably going to, at some point in the near future, once we start winding back taxes a little bit, put down encourage manufacturing industry in Jiangxi. At the start of this episode, it represented 9% of our GDP. It still represents 9%, but that's a lot of GDP in one place. 100 million, very nearly. It's got all this stuff going on. Pulling Austria into the customs union, owing them an obligation. Worst case scenario, they go for a defensive pact or an alliance with us. This is really not that terrible. But also, we've been getting a little bit naughty here. We've been not really staying under 25 as disciplinedly, with the understanding that, if we do go, first of all, we're a warlord, so infamies for suckers. But also, secondly, if we're going to do military-industrial... Prussia left the market, and now they're in the Piedmont market? Man, that's cursed as all hell. Jesus. We are planning on maybe going a little bit high infamy towards the end of this, in which case these guys will leave our market anyways, but most of our people are our subjects, and so it doesn't really matter too much, and we just have an enormous economy without them. But man, oh man, is that cursed. In the Piedmont market. Okay. Fair enough. Amazing. Pumpjacks is just such an absolutely strong tech, and often it reflects an inflection point where you stop caring as much as about capitalist investment pool contribution and more about just increasing raw GDP and increasing just raw value, and you kind of tend to lean into this and put on a bunch of auto expands. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it on in as many places as possible before we run a shortage, focusing in particular on areas that lead into industrial production later, and also opium's just insane. Tobacco will be the absolute last one we turn on, along with bananas, because these ones kind of suck. And so we're just unpausing to make sure that we haven't started to run a shortage of engines, because this often happens. Although we pre-built a bunch of engines in preparation. Ooh, can't forget the rubber plantations, which is something we've been running a shortage of. We've been having a hard time getting it up. The truth hurts. Let's see. I think we're actually not going to upgrade the other ones because we'd actually rather they don't auto-expand, at least not as aggressively. We'll probably do it in a little bit once, you know, the auto-queue takes care and builds a bunch of engines, but we might as well not do the things now. We're also going to make sure, okay, our urban centers are all handled, and there's one more thing, but I'm forgetting it now. So we're also going to discover a whole bunch of oil off the back of pump jacks. You know, we already have annexed Bahrain and Nejd in anticipation. We've subjugated Iraq, you know, kind of expecting to want oil, and so we're kind of going to be well on our way. Is that? No, it's not oil. A little bit too soon. Too soon. If we take a look at our trade routes, of course, all the really unprofitable ones now are all of our imports of all of these goods. We importantly will probably want to keep importing tobacco and, you know, the other stuff. We're actually exporting fruit right now, but we can delete most of these. We will not delete the rubber ones, though, because we want to turn on as many of the rubber PMs as possible. Wow, we were importing grain from someone? Terrible. And so we are going to do this. We're fine exporting the luxury goods, but now we're just going to consume our own, you know, of all of these goods that we are receiving a ton from off the back of pump jacks. And so we're just going to start leaning into that a little bit more. We'll tidy this up a little bit more outside of the thing. But another thing we are going to be doing is, now that we've kind of doubled the amount, maybe we can swap up everything to machine tooled. It's an absolute insane PM. It does cause a rubber shortage. Alright, what's the damage, my friends? Alright, we're nowhere near the amount of rubber we need, which is really unfortunate. We're trying to get it in. I mean, we're trying to also import it. We're trying to import it pretty aggressively. We're trying to increase these. A biggest problem is that even the rubber we have, we're having difficulties fully employing because the migration's really gimped in this version. You know, they have peasants here, but they don't want to employ despite the insano prices, which is a result of them being satisfied being peasants, which is terrible. I mean, which is good for them, I suppose. Well, why are they doing this? Maybe we need to depress the prices of all these goods a little bit more, and if we do that, maybe they'll be more willing to come on out. Yeah, so this is going to be unfortunate. We'll try and sort this out and decrease some of the usage of tools in various spots. The Rice Warlord, of course, both refers to themselves in the first person as well, or third person, rather. They don't know English, or they don't know, you know, tenses of person. Anyways, the point is we're increasing education, workplace safety, and health system all to the max. Just pump it up, and you know, we're even running like positive money after starting to export a whole bunch of stuff off the back of pump jacks, just really cranking up. And that's positive money having added 3K construction and being like $500,000 in a deficit at the start of the episode. So absolutely huge crank up. A huge portion of why we've been able to maintain all this has been our credit line has increased dramatically off the back of you know, the rice farms coming in. Let's take a look at the rice, and it is nice, and it is giving us a huge line of credit. Just this one in Jiangxi, and we have a bunch of these that we've expanded to level 51, is giving us 1.8 million credit. And so this is going to be, like, this has facilitated us running, you know, minus 500K, minus 1 million balance throughout the course of a large portion of this episode has been this rice farm, you know, being profitable enough to absorb a cash reserve. Now, prices are starting to dip. You know, we are exporting fruit, prices still dipped. We are exporting grain, prices still dipped. We're exporting a little bit of sugar, I think. I don't think we're exporting this as aggressively as the other two. We are consuming it, notably in our army, but if we take a look, we might even be able to export. I guess we're probably already exporting it. So we have to like pump the brakes at least a little bit or slow down slightly on our rice farm construction, but now it doesn't matter because we're getting to 8K construction with like a positive balance. So, you know, the rice has bridged. It's quite nice. It should suffice to bridge us into, you know, doubling our construction after doubling it before. Big nice. I think we're going to conclude the episode here. This episode, we have become Death Ricer of Warlords, you know, and to kind of look over some of the metrics we had. We started in 18 1980, so it's been about 6 years. We started with around 220 rice farms. Now we have 760, so we really have turned up on the rice farms in particular. We had like 600 or 700 million GDP, I think, and this was about where the point where we were at right when we started the rice. You notice it tilts up a little bit more, is a little bit more vertical than this, increasing the GDP, although at this point rice is sufficiently depressed in price that it's building a lot more of these won't really actively increase the GDP as much as it was before. It's still an obscene building though. It should really cost 400 construction, but it costs 200, so in terms of grains you are actively building, you kind of don't want to build anything but rice. It's also slot efficient because it's still only, even though it's effectively 2 buildings, it still only occupies 1 slot. So like if we think of it in terms of normal grain buildings, this isn't 220 to 760, this is 440 to 1400. We've effectively built 1,000 grain farms. The 1,000 grain farms of the Chinese Empire will descend upon you. So this is kind of one of the reasons why our SOL is cranked up, in addition to using the healthcare, is that we have decreased the price of rice, and we don't mind decreasing the price further because it's going to positively affect SOL. So SOL has come up quite a bit, and on the back of SOL coming back up and us instituting healthcare in the other institution, we went from growth of 3.65 million per annual to 8.8 million, so big crank up there. And then we also had, at the start, we had a loyalist count of 41 million, and now it's 75 million, and we had a radical count of 27 million, and now it's 14 million. So the radicals are going down, the loyalists are going up. Every time we finish a huge batch of grain, it increases the number of loyalists, and every time we export the grain or our grain exports ramp up, we've notably been putting in a ton of ports too to kind of facilitate this. They don't lose as much SOL, and so we don't generate as much radicals because we have the Confucian scholars on our side. Minus 100% radicals from standard living decreases. Now our modifier is not actually just minus 100% because we're getting plus 50% here, but we have been on full taxes, max everything this entire time, and we might even start ratcheting down taxes in the nearest future, but this is what we have been doing. Just huge crank up, doubling construction on the back of it too, going from minus 1 million, kind of balance at the start of the episode to now we're positive, and now we don't know what to do with ourselves, so we might just double construction again, although my computer, I don't know if it can handle that, in which case, maybe it's reasonable we decrease taxes. The Rice Warlord has brought in institutions to his people, and, we're going to be getting more education, more workplace safety, and even more pops and this type of stuff, more prosperity to our people. But I hope you enjoyed this Rice Warlord episode. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, have a good day.